Good Wednesday morning, everybody. Today's the day we do our scouting report. Got to fix my collar there. It's all askew. Running a little behind today. Hey, it is a fantastic day. Rangers 11, Astros 7.
Astros, come on, man. At least let me be in the World Series.
I know. D-back 7. I told you, running behind today. Aaron, you doing all right, buddy?
I'm doing all right. That was a lot better to watch than Game 3. It's always tough when you lose by 4 runs and the opposing team scores 10 runs with 2 outs and 5 of them are unearned. But yeah, I don't know. I guess congrats to the Rangers. It seems like the series is over based on everything I'm reading.
No.
Everything on Twitter. I know you won't say it, Travis. I know how you think.
Don't try to do the reverse jinx.
I'm not doing the reverse jinx.
The Rangers have been 1 out away from winning the World Series twice, Game 6 and Game 7 against the Cardinals. It ain't over till it's over. That's all I'm saying.
I'm going with Aaron right here. This is not a reverse jinx. This is like when they were saying the Phillies. Oh, okay, yeah, it's over. Look, Diamondbacks had a great run, but they're going to the Phillies ballpark, and they're not the environment of the Phillies. They're not going to be able to trump it.
I'm just simply reporting what I'm reading on Twitter, on Orange Bloods, on other articles. It seems like the series is over. I don't know. I've seen the pitching matchups for Game 6 and Game 7, and I'm intrigued. So I think tonight's game is pretty important. But I think the Rangers win tonight. But if they don't, I don't know.
It's almost like you yesterday's morning show, you were saying, hey, sometimes you're going to live by the bullpen, you're going to die by the bullpen.
Yeah, I said the Diamondbacks bullpen is going to have to pull it out of their ass one more time, and I kind of had a feeling they couldn't.
You kind of predicted it, yeah. You had the general vibe was set.
Yeah.
By the way, I may have had a slip of the tongue with the Astros, but Mike Solomon in the chat is giving condolences to Blake, not you, Aaron.
All right, everyone still calls me Blake.
1 producer, 2 producer, 3 producer more. Anyway, the Specs chat line is up and running. Benny Rogers was first in the house. Good morning to you, Benny. Good morning to Jason as well. We got Texas man with his horns up. Good morning. That is the name of the show. Get your horns up. Colton Bunting knows that all too well. Not Cotton. Cotton knows it all too well as well. Sandman is in the house, as all usual. The longest horn. I still like that moniker. That's a good one. Longest horn. And Gabriel Aguilar in the house. Good morning, fellas. It is a good morning. We got a lot to talk about, right? We've got the scouting report. We've got Wyatt Thompson, the voice of Kansas State, coming on the show in the 7 a.m. hour, starting at 7 a.m. So we're going to open up the scouting report and do a deep dive into what Kansas State is coming into town with. We've also got, I feel like we've got to start here. And listen, I know I said no more playoff talk. Put the moratorium on it. I declare. But alas, it is the news of the day. I cannot ignore the news of the day, right? Despite the fact that all playoff talk is irrelevant if Texas doesn't win Saturday. But Texas checks in. First, college football playoff rankings. Texas checks in at number 7. Ahead of OU, by the way, which plenty of Sooner fans are none too happy about that after they did win in Dallas. But, that's what happens when you lose at Kansas, right? You're going to fall down the rankings. So Ohio State, number 1, followed by Georgia, Michigan, Florida State. Just outside the top 4 is Washington and Oregon. Then Texas, Alabama, OU, and Ole Miss rounding out the top 10. Let me get I want to start. We're going to do Texas-centric talk here in a second, but I want to start. What did you guys think about Ohio State coming in atop the rankings? Nash, I'll start with you.
I think that it makes a lot of sense. Ohio State, they have a lot of good wins so far. They've also they've shown an ability at times to not beat opponents out like crazy, and I think it shows that the committee, they value who you win and the teams that you played over just absolutely dominating teams like at Michigan. And I think a little bit of the controversy, whether they say it didn't or not, played into them not ranking Michigan number 1. But yeah, and nothing major takeaway with Ohio State number 1. I just also feel like Georgia, like playing teams like what was it, Auburn? They won by 7 points. So it's just, yeah, I don't like. There's no major takeaway.
Yeah,
for
I
week
mean,
1.
yeah, I think you're right. Clearly, their win over Notre Dame on the road, which was, you go into South Bend and win, you got to get credit for that. Their win over Penn State, those are two of the bigger wins on the season for anybody, right? I mean, I still think Texas over Alabama is the top win of the year so far. Like, if you're building a resume, I think that's got to be at the top. But Notre Dame and Penn State, that's going to put them up there, and Michigan's schedule is hurting them. So this is all fluid for now. But I was still a little surprised. I'm not going to admit I was still a little surprised they were up there. Aaron, how about you?
Yeah, I think the main thing with Ohio State, seeing them above Michigan, that gives Texas fans a little more clarity on who to root for in the Ohio State-Michigan game. I think you definitely root for Ohio State now because the committee clearly has more respect for Ohio State than Michigan just based on the non-conference wins and the non-conference schedule. So in a scenario where Texas is going up against a one-loss Michigan or a one-loss Ohio State, I think Texas would be better off if Michigan's just out of the picture because Ohio State is clearly getting a lot of respect there from the committee. So you don't want Michigan to be undefeated basically, and then Ohio State to have one loss and then have to deal with that. I think the other big thing that jumped out was Oregon one spot ahead of Texas. The most likely scenario, I believe, is that, if you have one loss Texas against one loss Oregon and they're both conference champs, this is where that could become a little problematic because, Texas has some nice games down the stretch where they could boost their resume, but so does Oregon. So if both teams finish as conference champs with one loss, I don't really see why the committee would flip that. But, I mean, it is early and there are on-the-field reasons to potentially flip that. But just the fact that they made the statement and said, right now, we're putting one-loss Oregon ahead of one-loss Texas, I thought that was pretty significant.
I think what that came down to, and what I was saying, that's what I was saying about. I don't really have much of a reaction for Ohio State, but I agree with you. Like the reaction here is the story of the day is Oregon over Texas.
Yeah,
but I think the reason, honestly, in my mind, I know. Look, going into Bright-Denning, it's just different than going to Washington. But Washington, that's one heck of an environment that they put out there, the Huskies. Especially when they're a top team and, there's a bunch of fanfare around it. So that was a really fun game to watch, and that was crazy. It went down the wire. And you could honestly make the case that Oregon probably should have won that game versus Kansas, or not Kansas State, versus Washington. And you got the purple teams mixed up. But so I think that kind of might have played a factor into the committee. And then also, I think if you have a tiebreaker versus Texas, and like say you think, okay, we hold both these wins at the same level, it just comes down to which team has played better recently. And Oregon has looked like one of the best teams in the country as of late in their wins, versus Texas is out there. Like I maintain, we didn't play nearly close to our best game versus Oklahoma. And then you follow that up and you go out to Houston and you play a really not even close to your best game. And then you go out to BYU, you play BYU at home, and we won 35-6, but we didn't play close to our best game. It could have been a lot more. Should have been a lot more.
All of that is the reason why I put the moratorium on it, because Texas isn't looking like, again, when I watch them, you talk about the eyeball test. They don't really pass the eyeball test right now of being a college football playoff team.
But I think the playoff, they clearly showed, the CFP committee, they clearly showed, we're going to put your record and what you've done over the eyeball test. But at the end of the day, the eyeball test does play into the equation.
Absolutely. And because every committee member is going to, they've got their own criteria, but what you see on the field does definitely play into that, and how they're playing as you get into the playoffs. That's not to say Texas isn't going to be a playoff team. That's not at all what I'm saying. I've never said that. If Texas wins out, I still think it's going to be hard to get there because of Oregon potentially spoiling the party, Florida State potentially spoiling the party. I mean, if Georgia runs the table, the Big Ten, if Georgia runs the table, they're in. Again, the Big Ten champ is in. The Florida State runs the table, they're in. And then you're looking at a potential Big 12 champ, Texas, against a potential big Pac-12 champion. I just, it's hard to envision Texas getting in over Oregon. To Aaron's point, why would they flip that? Because that means that they've got Oregon's going to have some big wins down the road too, including a potential, if they were to win out, including a win over Washington, a potentially undefeated Washington in the Pac-12 championship game. I mean, so this is not something that. I'm not saying Texas is not going to get in the playoffs, but I'm not saying they're going to. And none of it matters, by the way. None of it matters if they don't win this week.
At the end of the day, too, it's like you look at the history of like what the college football playoff rankings have done at the initial rankings, and then who's wound up in the top 4. Really, if you're 1 through 7 in the past 9 years of the playoff when it's existed, really you've been in pretty good shape. Those 1 through 7, those are the teams. Really, outside of them, it's only been 3 teams, and honestly, it's kind of crazy that it is Oklahoma, who's sitting at 9 again. They had a year where they finished. They debuted in the poll at 9, then they finished in the top 4 of the college football playoff rankings of the final one, and then they also had one where they were 15th in the initial poll, and then ended up top 4. So, but there's only been 3 times that a team has been outside the top 7 in the initial rankings and made the final 4.
There you go. So, and listen, I understand why OU fans are upset. I do. I get it. You beat Texas. But to me, the Texas loss, it's rare, but there are times where I come out of a game and I still think the losing team is the better team. I came out of that Red River shootout thinking Texas is still the better team over OU. I came out of the Washington-Oregon game. I went into that game thinking Washington was better. Washington won. I came out of it thinking, actually, I think Oregon's the better team there. And rivalry games, anything can happen, and those are 2 rivalry games.
Exactly.
Oregon lost on the road with some last-minute heroics. Texas lost with some last-minute heroics. They don't choke. But you know what? To that point, and this is kind of I'm going to preview a little bit of what I'm worried about with Kansas State. Texas's pass defense is why they lost that game, because they gave up so much. There was so much miscommunication. There was so much soft coverage. There was so much of the problems in that last drive that yielded that touchdown to OU that lost them the game. That's a concern still going forward. That we talk about Texas isn't playing their best football. We're in November now. When are they going to play their best football? And what if we've already seen their best football? I mean, are they playing up to their potential? No. But what if we've already seen the best Texas is going to give us?
I mean, in my opinion, I think here's the weird thing about Texas. And this is like, I hate to parrot something that I've been ribbon Sark for saying, which is the versatility. But there's at least one game where you can, and honestly, probably at this point, 2 games in the schedule where you can go and you can say, okay, you know what? The pass defense did really well, right? Like they look like that's what we want. That's what we've been dying to see here. You can say that probably 2 games for the rush defense. Now, honestly, probably a lot more for the rush defense because the rush defense has really carried a lot of the load.
Absolutely.
But there's so many phases of the game that you can go and you can point to individual games and be like, look at that game, man. Wow. We did, we did really good there. But if we've done well in one phase, we've always lacked in another phase. We've never put the entire, it's like the Bob Ross thing. Never painted the whole picture, never got the whole deal going. Right over Aaron.
I know now.
Yeah, he knows now. But yeah, so basically, it's just you want to see them put it all together, and you know what? The best time that you could ever start to put it all together is right when November. If you're gonna start, you know what? If they're gonna, I'd rather this be the case. It's almost like baseball, right? You never, if you could pick when your team gets hot, give me May and June. Give me May and June all week long.
Yeah, I mean, I think Travis makes a good point about how the team Pete is maybe played their best early. I think a big part of that still, and I keep going back to this, was the physicality in the secondary, making tackles. And man, I've been watching some Kansas State games, and I think that is going to be the key. Kansas State wants to make the corners and the safeties tackle. They want to make the linebackers get out on the edge and tackle. This has to be a big, obviously, you feel good about Jahdae Barron making tackles at all times. You feel good about Jalen Ford. This has to be a huge Jalen Ford game. Anthony Hill, this is going to have to be a breakout game. This is one where I wish Jalen Catalon was out there, or if he is out there, I wish he was up there.
Yeah, we need our starters back on the defensive backfield.
I mean, injuries are a real problem.
I mean, Catalan would be huge because this is the team that you need your safeties coming downhill, taking the right angles, and making tackles against this Kansas State run game because they like to run to the outside. They'll run with their quarterbacks. They'll pull their guards. They want to make guys tackle that aren't comfortable tackling. So that's where we need to see early season Texas because I remember just watching Alabama or watching the Baylor game. And it's just like, man, these guys are tackling really well and they're making their presence felt. And I haven't felt that as much in the last couple games. And I think that's going to be massive in this one.
Absolutely. And you know what? Again, I feel like we're gonna talk about a lot of this tomorrow. So bear with us if we are. But when you start looking at Kansas State, and we've got Wyatt Thompson coming up in 15 minutes, the voice of the K-State Wildcats, he'll be on. When you start talking about Kansas State, though, obviously their strength is the run game. There's no doubt about it. But Will Howard, who I know he's now splitting time with Avery Johnson pretty much, Will Howard can make a Texas secondary pay. He's a good quarterback. He's the defending Big 12 champ right now, right? I mean, the dude has some ability. And I know we started talking about the playoffs, but all of that's moot if Texas doesn't take care of business. In fact, the Big 12 championship game is probably out the door if Texas doesn't win Saturday. I mean, that's how big this upcoming game is. So forget the college football playoff. The goal coming into the season was to be Big 12 champs. The loss in Dallas hurt them. That was the one gimme card when you're talking about trying to get to Dallas, get to Arlington for the championship game. They've got to win Saturday, or their odds of making it back to Arlington for the game are 20, 30%, something like that. I mean, there's just too many one-loss teams right now in the conference to feel comfortable. It takes everything out of your own hands. You've got to rely on luck after that to get into the Big 12 championship game. And that's not where anyone wanted to be.
I mean, it would be a crushing loss. I mean, there's no way around it. I mean, just with all the momentum that the program has built, all the positivity coming out of the Alabama game, everything seeming like this is a team more than capable of winning the Big 12 in its last year. To have Kansas State, come into DKR and just win, even without Quinn, it would be pretty devastating. Obviously, no one on this show is rooting for that to happen, but I mean, the stakes are massive, and it's unfortunate that the stakes are this massive against Kansas State because you would like Texas to just be a 15-point favorite and that not be a thing, but that's just not the case, and this is a huge game.
Yeah, and I mean, going back to, you're gonna hear us talk about this a little bit more later, but going back to what you said, Travis, I think honestly the reason why you have the defensive backs playing off the ball so much is it just pairs up. This defense pairs up really well with PK's mentality. Is the bend don't break, and when you look at it, we're one of the best we're one of the best teams as far as not allowing touchdowns in the red zone. So if you have your at the end of the day, I think the way that the mentality that PK goes at is look, if the defensive backs are 40 yards off the line of scrimmage and we're giving up every single third down in the world, who cares? As long as they're not turning those third downs into points. Because what you don't want is you don't want your defense. And honestly, I think the reason why you've also started to see this a lot since Oklahoma, that's when you started to see people really start to gripe about it. And this is when you started to see the Oklahoma, like we've started to see some of the starters being out, is these younger guys. You're having younger guys on the field. And I think it's just a way of allowing him to mitigate mistakes from these young guys. Maybe if they bite down too much or something like that, or they allow a guy to go over the top. You look at how Houston happened. I think Houston's a great example of why you want guys playing 20 yards back beyond the line of scrimmage because, hey, like just this is a team that it's hard to score on this Texas team in the red zone.
I mean, I remember calling for it on this exact show. I mean, I remember saying this Texas red zone defense seems legit. The whole focus of the defense should be not allowing explosive plays, and they've been doing it. And I understand it can be frustrating to watch. Travis, I know you make a good point. They're not aggressive on third downs, and the thing is, they can get away with that against the lesser teams, which they
but
have.
They can't. They really can't. Houston was only in that game because they were giving up 12-yard cushions. I mean, when you're giving up an 8-yard cushion on 3rd and 2, you can't expect to stop a quick out and give up a first down.
Well, they got in the game.
I mean, they'll concede the yards and make you drive all the way down the field, even on 3rd and 2.
But it's happening. It's happening. They're driving down the field. Houston wasn't in the K-State game. They were just shut out. K-State shut out Donovan Smith. Texas gave Houston all of those yards, every single one of them. They gave. I mean, you cannot hold a team to what was it like 32 yards total rushing, and have to rely on the 4th down stop.
It was less than that.
A minute.
It was 14. It was 14 yards. I think.
All right. Even more of my point. You hold a team to 14 yards rushing, you should be winning comfortably. But when you give up nearly 400 yards passing because your secondary is playing off. Now, and listen, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Ryan Watts was out for that game. He's their best press man coverage DB. But if Gavin Holmes and Terrence Brooks can't do it, then God, throw the rookies in. Throw in Malik Muhammad. Have him. You've got to play a little tighter coverage.
I think it's going to be a little different this week, though. The point I was getting to was I think it's going to be a little different this week because this Kansas State team, if you play that type of defense, they will just run it all over you. And you can't just let them get into the red zone and expect to stop them because, Texas is second in the country on defense and touchdown percentage in the red zone. But the Kansas State offense is in the top 3 for their offense on touchdown percentage in the red zone. Like it is a big matchup. So you can't let them march down and get in the red zone and be like, all right, they're in the red zone. We're going to stop them now because they're very good in the red zone. So I think this is a week where you do play more aggressive and you try to force some sacks, you try to force some turnovers, and you just say, maybe we do make them beat us over the top because we have Ryan Watts back. We've got Jahdae Barron. Try to get some better play out of the safety. So I think this is a week where you can change that up if you're the Texas defense and you can play more aggressive just because Kansas State wants to run the ball and they can execute in the red zone. So you can't just be as confident in your red zone defense this week against the offense that has proven they will get 7 if they get down there.
Yeah, in my opinion, honestly, the 2 most important players for Texas, offense and defense, this game are going to be Jahdae Barron and Anthony Hill.
I agree with that.
I mean, because you're gonna want Anthony Hill just absolutely tracking down whatever because the quarterback is going to run this game, and Anthony Hill, you want him making his presence felt, and he will make his presence felt early on, but especially against a running quarterback, that's like paramount to get in their heads early on, and then Jahdae Barron, please. I implore quarterbacks, throw the screen pass his way. Throw the screen pass on his side because if there's one thing that I'd be like, I would go and bet my house on, it would be Jade Barron blowing up a play in the backfield when they toss a screen to his side.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. I agree with Jade being critical and Anthony Hill being critical in this game. Jade Barron has clearly been one of the best players, period, on this team. And he was out, for quite a bit there in the middle. I think he got injured in Houston. Is that right? When he first picked up his injury?
He didn't even play Houston until the very end of the game. That was like break glass in case of emergency.
That's right. So
they smashed that glass. Yeah. They said.
So
I mean, crap, we gave
Roddy Barron, he just brings a toughness to this team that you don't really that is missing when he's not out there, right? I mean, I'm not saying the rest of the guys are soft. That's not, because clearly this is a good defense, but the pass defense, he brings a toughness to the back half of the defense.
I mean, preseason, I had a conversation with Rod Babers on Twitter where we were talking about, who the like best defensive backs were since the 2008 years and all that stuff. Like you got the Vacaros, you got your Quandre Diggs, Aaron Williams, and honestly, I remember saying Jade Barron here, just with how versatile he is as a defensive back, he reminds me so much of Aaron Williams. He's probably, since Quandre Diggs, he's probably and this is really high praise considering you got guys like Caden Stearns his freshman year, Deshaun Elliott his entire career here at Texas. Jade is probably the best defensive back we've had since Quandre Diggs. He is just he does literally everything. Does it all.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's key how he can help in the pass game and the run game so much, and he can force turnovers. So yeah, I mean, I don't.
And honestly, he could be a special teams weapon, but we don't even use him in that aspect. He's probably the best.
He could be, but I don't want to use him in that aspect.
No, but I mean, it's just like I do think that goes to show that's one of those culture things, in my opinion. When you don't have to use, like, we have a bunch of players that we can use on special teams. And honestly, I feel like that's just not when you have your lower level guys out there, scratching and clawing to get on the field through special, honestly, that's usually one of the aspects of the field where people are like, I don't want to play. I don't want to do anything. I don't want anything to do with special teams. But when you got your best players wanting to do something with special teams, and it allows you to say, you know what, Jade, we need you in a lot of other aspects, and we want you healthy.
Guys like Xavier Worthy being on special teams. You're right that's a culture thing. You're also right, by the way, that Anthony Hill could play a key role in the Texas defensive plans come Saturday. And if you would like to jump on it, now's the chance to get yourself an Anthony Hill autographed jersey, brought to you by Elite Sports Memorabilia, who are, of course, the title sponsor for this show. Just whip out your phone, scan this QR code. Hill's just signed a bunch of autographed memorabilia on Sunday, so it's fresh off the press, fresh out. The ink is barely dry on his signature, and you can still buy it and have it shipped to your house. The customer service is elite. The play of Anthony Hill has been elite, and now you can have an elite sports memorabilia autographed Anthony Hill jersey sent directly to your home for Christmas, or heck, just for any kind of day that ends in Y if you want to buy it. Shop now. Go do yourself a favor. Do Anthony Hill a favor. Do us a favor and check that out. And by the way, this is a home game for Texas, which means tailgating out at DKR. And the best thing to do before you get to the tailgate scene, make sure you stop by Specs and check out some fine wines, beers, spirits, craft beers, good spirits, or whatever food essentials you need for your tailgate party. They've got them there. Or if you're just watching the game at home, you know what? Check out Specs online or the Specs app. They'll even deliver it straight to you.
No matter what you're needing, Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
All righty, it's time for the scouting report We've got Wyatt Thompson, voice of the K-State Wildcats, joining us today. Wyatt, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing really well. It's my pleasure to join you guys. Hope you are good. Looking forward to that 80-degree weather when we get down there.
It's
Not
a little,
not here.
it's a little chillier right now in Austin.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
We appreciate you getting up early on that. You've got a game tonight, don't you? A basketball game coming up.
Yes, sir. Exhibition game against Emporia State. It's a Division II program here in the state. They were 23-9 a year ago, and this, of course, is year 2 with Coach Tang, and everybody is really, really excited. Students have really responded with student tickets. Our fan base is pumped up, and things are pretty good right now. So we'll see how it goes tonight.
Boy, he's really got that. He turned that program around quickly, didn't he?
You know what? I said to a friend of mine yesterday, it's astonishing to me that it took so long for him, guys, to get an opportunity to be a head coach anywhere. Yeah. He's so good. I think we knew we were getting a good man. I think everybody knew we were getting a guy who was going to be a good quality recruiter. I don't know that any of us saw the floor coach, and how would you, I suppose, but he's just done a really, really nice job. He had a tough thing, over the weekend where he had to indefinitely suspend a player. It's the first real hiccup that we've had in the, year plus he's been here. But he's done a really nice job. And, the league is so hard. There's no doubt about that. But, a lot of people are picking K-State in that 5th or 6th range. And if you're in that area, you're probably a tournament team. And we're excited about that.
Absolutely. Speaking of coaching jobs, the job Chris Kleiman has done has been nothing short of fantastic. And I don't know, most people I think would have expected that coming in, given what he was able to do on his rise up. But the big question I have is, who's he going to play more quarterback on Saturday? Are we going to see more Will Howard or Avery Johnson?
I get asked that about every minute of my life, not every day. And I think that the right answer here, at least to start, will be Will Howard, just because of the experience. Will also has some experience versus the Longhorns, as you know. I thought, in all honesty, and then Coach confirmed it at his presser yesterday, that Will played one of his absolute best games in his career last week against Houston. He just was rock solid, did everything well, completed his first 12, didn't force much, really just kind of settled in. And, you go back a few weeks with the very frustrating loss to Oklahoma State. He's been refocused since then. And, sometimes when you're challenged, you push ahead a little bit too. And I think that's the case with him. He's human. He sees Avery Johnson over his shoulder, right? I mean, it is what it is. And Avery's going to be a really good player. But I think, in all honesty, we know this. I guess I'll say it this way. Experience counts. And Will's got a great deal of experience. And I think he'll get the call. And that's not to say that Avery won't play. I think they'll give him some time. But I think they're going to go for a little bit here with Will.
Well, thank you for joining the show this morning. We always really appreciate it. Red zone has been a big hot topic of debate this week among Texas and Kansas State. Kansas State is very good in the red zone on offense and on defense. So I just have a 2-part question I want to ask you about that. What makes the Kansas State red zone offense so good? And then what makes the Kansas State red zone defense so good?
Well, the red zone defense is probably a little harder to quantify, but as you know, the field is minimized. And I think K-State has gotten really good linebacker play through even some bad luck and attrition, whatever you want to say, because you guys know, you follow this. We lost Daniel Green early in the year with a torn pec muscle, 6th-year guy, middle linebacker, good player, probably if not a first-team All-League guy, certainly potentially a second-team All-Big 12 type player. That's a monumental loss because the first replacement there was a guy who had played in about 3 games, and that's a freshman linebacker by the name of Austin Romaine, who's really done a nice job. He has had an injury, but is back now. But even Jake Clifton, who's, I think, a unique story because he can play all 3 positions. Those backers have been good. The middle has been a little problematic with injury, but the 2 guys on the outside, Desmond Purnell and Austin Moore, have just been awesome. So I think that's part of it. They haven't got a ton of sacks this year, guys. I don't know that they're as disruptive as say, the Texas defensive front, but I do think they're really good at the right timing of blitzes and things like that. And their coverage has been better. Maybe that's overall the biggest key. That was problematic early in the year, and they're starting to get better there. With the offense, I think it's just frankly, experience with Will. You've got guys that have been through this many, many times for the most part, and a veteran offensive line. Texas and I think Kansas State, Texas, and West Virginia were the 3 teams in the league that had their starters on the offensive line all back intact this year. That makes a real big difference. Hope that answers the question.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, what's your favorite? What part of the game are you most excited to watch for? I mean, there's so many great matchups going on this week between Texas and Kansas State. You look at it like points per game; it's both top 20, both top 15. Yards per game, both top 20. Rushing, it's really the Kansas State offensive rush attack versus the defense. That's something to watch for. And then on the Texas side, the Texas pass attack versus, like you were saying, the Kansas State. It's y'all are top 20 defending completion percentage. Y'all are top 24 in yards per pass allowed. Pass yards per game, y'all are number 4 in the nation right now. Pass touchdowns allowed, y'all are number 5. Like, this is it's a ton. Like, it's almost like if you think about like that like the Godzilla versus Kong movie, right? Where it's like you got the Godzilla versus going up against King Kong, and they're just sitting there, battering out. And it's just 2 titans going at it in all these categories.
Yeah, you said a lot there, and I guess what I would try to add to that is I think you when you look at Texas, I think everybody sees how tough they are physically, that they can run. I think Sark's done a really nice job with them, guys. I really, truly mean that, because if you look across the board, all 3 phases, they are as rock solid as anybody in the league. I even said after the loss to Oklahoma that I still believe they're the best team in the league, and I believe that today. And I'll probably believe that in December. Doesn't mean they'll win the league, but I think that their chances are better than everybody else, if I'm being honest. Especially if Ewers comes back at the right time. That's not to say anything bad about Malik, but again, it's that experience thing, right? The thing that will go back to your question here, I think for K-State, the key in this little movement forward since the win at Tech is they've been better in every area, minimizing mistakes. They had not forced many turnovers. They were turning the ball over a little too much. Those are un-K-State-like things. And since that game, they have been better in all of those areas that you talked about. I think they were really upset with how they prepared and how they played in Stillwater, to take nothing away from Oklahoma State. But I think they're a little more focused now. They know what it's like going to Texas, most of these guys, not all of them, but many of them. And it's challenging. But I do think, and this may sound a little odd, but I know you guys beat Alabama at Alabama, but I think K-State figured out last year in the Sugar Bowl, even though they ended up getting away from them a little bit late in the game, they felt like they belonged. They didn't play their best football in that game, and they were kind of still in it. So, Texas is a big team. They're really quality. But these guys are blue collar. They work hard, and you know what? They're pretty confident right now. So I hope I'm rambling a bit, but I want to make the point that these guys feel like they're as good as anybody if they do what they're supposed to do. And that's win the day on Monday and all the way through, and then compete when you get to game time. They're more physical and tough than people realize too, I believe.
Well, they also,
anyone who's discounting K-State's physicality they don't know football, or they haven't watched.
They beat the team that played in the national championship. So
yeah. And one thing that really has helped us too, I probably should mention this. You guys are certainly aware of Cooper Beebe, our left guard. Early in the year with Christian Duffy at right tackle out, he had to move and play different spots. They've been a different team since he has just settled in and played his position. He is a difference-making guy for them. He's not the only guy up there that's quality, but he's, by my standards, I think coach's standards, the best football player out there. And when he's playing at optimum level, they can do some things. The other thing that makes K-State hard, along with the physicality, is all of the things they do offensively and defensively. They're fairly complex, although the coach did say part of the success with the secondary has been simplifying some things. Sometimes when you simplify, you can go too far, But in this particular case, I think it's made them a lot more rock solid, and they've tackled better too. They weren't the world's best tackling team early in the year. They've cleaned that up.
Watching
talked
BB
about
and Sweat go at it should be fun.
Oh, it's gonna be an interesting game. I love going there because it's one of the great venues in college football, and you want to compete against teams like this, right? I mean, that's why we do this, and Coach Kleiman is well aware. He's been reminded of this, a lot. He's won a lot of football games the time he's been here, and he's been really, really good. But he has not beaten Texas, and it's a hard thing to do. But I think they've got a lot of work, good quality work in this week. I think they're confident, as I said before. At the end of the day, let's just simplify this down to what it is. For K-State to really have an opportunity, they're going to have to find some running game and or throw to set up run. I don't think you just line up against Texas and just hammer them at the line of scrimmage like K-State did last week against Houston. That's not the way this works.
Well, let me ask you about the run game then. Is the run game, does K-State's run game work better when it's turn around and hand it to Giddens and let him get behind that beefy line and go? Or does the quarterback run set up the rest of the K-State run game?
Oh, I think it's the latter for sure. I think that's where K-State has really separated from these teams over the last 3 weeks with Tech and TCU and then Houston, is the threat of the quarterback run game. I think even in our fan base, what is very interesting to me is that if you really ask most general K-State fans, they'll tell you that Will Howard is the runner, Avery Johnson is Will Howard is the thrower, Avery Johnson is the runner. And as Coach has said over and over and over and over, both can do both. And we can win games with both guys. The difference is 30 some games of experience as opposed to 5. That's kind of what we're looking at. Will is a winner in every way, guys. Great teammate, goes the extra mile on anything and everything, involved in the community. I mean, you couldn't possibly say any more about him. He's coached by one of the best people I know in Colin Klein, who was a star here. But Avery's got an amazing skill set. You'll be impressed with his running ability, and he can spin it too. He just hasn't had the same opportunities as Will, but those days are coming, no doubt about it. Will it be Saturday? That's a little up in the air, but someday.
Wyatt, we've got a good question here in the chat that I am curious about. What aspect of Texas would scare or worry this Kansas State team? You're familiar with, Texas and a lot of their strengths. What is the one strength of Texas where you look at them and you say, I'm not sure how Kansas State's going to be able to deal with this part of the game? Yeah,
it's a great question. And it's one that you can probably this is my 22nd year at K-State. And I think the easiest way to say it is when you play Texas, you have to be concerned about 2 things: their physicality and size at the line of scrimmage, both sides of the ball, and their speed. It's as simple as that. I mean, Coach mentioned this to me yesterday. Xavier Worthy is a star. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he is going to be a guy that creates all kinds of different headaches for you. But that's not all there is. Jonathan Brooks, Adonai Mitchell, Jatavion Sanders. If you guys want to take a couple of those cats out for Saturday, we're all in on it. I don't think they're going to do
Sark
that.
might take Jonathan Brooks out. Don't tempt him.
Don't.
We already took out yours. What else do you want?
Well, yeah, and with Trevondre Sweat, and guys like that, it seems to me like, and I'm not trying to be funny, but it's going to sound like it. It seems like Jalen Ford's been there about a decade. I mean, really? I mean, like our Phillip Brooks. He's just been around a long, long time, and those guys are all, you just don't see that many types of guys like that in our league. And our league is good. There's no doubt about that. They're just they're just tough that way.
I'm pretty sure your entire offensive line are 12th year seniors.
Well, we do it. That's a great point, because Cooper Beebe came back for a 5th year and probably would have been I'm going to say early to mid 2nd round pick.
Easily.
I think he could be higher than that this time, but he really came back because the 2 tackles are both 6th year guys. Our center is a 6th year guy, and he's a 5th year guy. So there is some, quote, long in the tooth going on there. There's no doubt about that. And those guys They've become really, really close. It's just a really, again, blue collar, hardworking bunch of guys. They just grab their lunch pail and go to work every day. And that's kind of what K-State's all about. And they're proud of that, I think.
So Wyatt, ever since you mentioned Ford, I gotta ask this. I sorry to put you on the spot.
No.
Do you think Jalen Ford should have won the Defensive Player of the Year last year? Do you think he was snubbed?
You could certainly make that argument. Sometimes those kind of things are, I'm not sure how to say this, but there's some voters that probably really know and some that don't pay as much of attention as they probably should. And those kind of things happen, if I'm being totally blunt about it. I'm not picking on anyone, but I think that's the way it works. We talk about that with the AP poll too.
Even the Heisman.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of, you've got some people that watch a boatload of games and kind of know what's going on. And then others that are just kind of, they pay a little bit of attention to their region, and that's about it. I love the game enough, and I know you guys do too. You kind of watch it all.
Yeah.
Or try to.
Yeah. Speaking of, I've got to ask you about the college football rankings. I was at one of the most shocking things to me was to see Kansas come in above K-State in the rankings. I mean, what was the reaction in Manhattan last night?
Not really anything terribly bad. I think what K-State fans have figured out is that, like what we've all figured out, Lance Leipold's done a great job there, and he's done it very quickly through, the transfer portal. They've gotten better. I just think they have one of the really most interesting offensive coordinators in the college game now. They're very innovative in what they do. They just drive you crazy with all of the movement, motion, and they are difficult to defend because they've got 3 tight ends that can play. They have 2 or 3 really good, 2 for sure running backs. Their receivers are good enough to get some separation, and they just kind of find a way. They're better defensively, which has helped them. They're not great, they're not dominant, but they compete. And I think when you mold all of that together, I think you could pretty much say that they're a top 20-ish type football team most days. And what's really fun for them, I'm sure, is they're doing almost all of this without Jalen Daniels, who was the preseason player of the year. I don't know, even in their own backyard, that Jason Bean gets the credit that he deserves. He's, again, not a superstar, but he's just a winner. He shows up every day, whether he's supposed to play or not, and kind of competes. You got to love that.
Yeah, he's a heck of a quarterback. And you know what? I mean, if Leipold and Kleiman both stay there and at their Kansas schools, they say they like to say the Big 12 runs through Lubbock, but the Big 12 might run through those plains.
Yeah, it's interesting that, I guess, depending on how you look at that, I think you have to respect Joey and what's going on there. But, with Oklahoma and Texas leaving the league, I think it's wide open for, okay, who's next? You could make an argument for KU and K-State and Tech, but you could also say that you could probably throw another team or two. You don't think Mike Gundy doesn't think this is going to be okay for them?
Yeah.
Or
Utah coming in.
No question.
I know.
There's a big one right there, guys.
Yeah.
They are tough and physical. I think they're a good fit for this conference. I really, truly do.
Yeah, I agree. And even a team like Arizona, Jed Fish has got things turned around there. They're going to.
Yes.
I'm actually excited for the Big 12 moving forward. I think they've definitely cemented themselves as, however you want to rank them, but they're there as a contender, especially moving into the 12-team playoff era.
Well, I said from the beginning when all of this shook down that you're never going to replace the brands that are Texas and Oklahoma, and that is reality. But I think the league has done a good job of kind of picking itself up, dusting itself off, and putting together what's, I believe, going to be a pretty good product. I think if we're being honest, what is this all about? Television and television revenue and fannies and seats. And I think all of these places are going to put fannies and seats, and we're going to see a lot of good games on television. I'm like you. I think Utah, Arizona. I mean, we didn't mention Colorado.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I know they've flattened out here a little bit lately, but that dude's going to get players if he hangs around,
Yes.
and they're going to be dangerous. There's no question about that.
Absolutely.
Man, I think that you nailed it on the head right there. This is what Yormark has done a really good job at, is not getting lost in, I'm losing Texas and Oklahoma, and I need to go out and I need to find some giants that replace it. Because you know what? That the Big 12, it's dead. Right? That version of the Big 12 is gone. You just recreate, and you basically are, give birth to a whole new image of a league that maybe the fans have never seen yet. But when it happens, it's going to be very exciting to watch, because also, here's the other thing, is that these are all teams that could do well in basketball as well.
Well, that's where I was going to go next, because, by nature, and I'm like you, I think Yormark's done a really nice job. I think he's very aggressive. I think he's a very confident man, believes in what he's doing and where the league is headed, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, whatever it might be. But I'm a little bit prejudiced, and I admit it straight up to you and anybody else that will listen. But I think we're already the best basketball league in the country by a mile. And I think you start adding Arizona, Colorado, those types of teams. And then, I don't know if the Gonzaga thing will happen, but are you kidding?
Yeah.
That's like adding an Arizona or a Kansas or a Baylor, don't you think? My goodness.
You can keep that version of B-ball. We got this one. That's SEC.
Well, they're good too. I'm a pretty honest guy by nature, and I think their league right now, how do I want to say this? Usually at the top, they're pretty darn good. Middle, lower middle, and down, maybe not so much, but not right now. Most everybody is kind of on an uptick. Would you agree with that? I do think their league this year will be quite good in basketball. Definitely through the middle or even into the lower middle.
Yeah, I'm the smile and wave guy on basketball talk.
No, I think that's spot on. I think that's correct.
Wyatt, we appreciate you so much taking your time to join us. Good luck tonight calling the game. Speaking of basketball, good luck tonight calling that game, and have safe travels down to Austin this weekend.
Well,
sorry if the weather disappoints you, because we've gotten pretty cold recently.
So what is it going to be Saturday? Do we know?
I think I looked at it. It's going to be pretty close to what Manhattan should be.
Okay. Well,
right now it's 43 degrees right now.
Up towards the weekend, so that'll be okay. We've been. I think the temperature here this morning is like 22. So
actually, it's not bad.
That's better than Texas, but we're at 43. this morning. So
okay,
it looks like it's going to be pretty nice.
It looks like it's forecast to be like sunny and 78.
Oh, you take it every time.
Yeah,
it's November, man. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
Benny, Wyatt, thank you so much again.
You bet, you guys. Great talking to you.
Have a fantastic
really
day.
I had fun.
Appreciate
Thank
it
you so much.
Hey, thank you for joining.
Thanks, Wyatt.
That was it. I agree
with
a lot of good Rogers here.
We've had some really good guests.
Absolutely.
He was up there. He brought it. He had the energy, and he definitely had the knowledge. That was good.
Hey, Colby agrees. Saying he was way better than the podcast he listened to yesterday.
I love first sentence. I was a little bit of clap at me rambling.
No, he was good. He was good.
I loved how his first sentence was a clap at me rambling. He was like, hey, you got a lot out there. I typically do.
It was a long question, but yeah, he confirmed a lot of what I was thinking. But yeah, this Kansas State team, man, they're coming in with a lot of confidence. I think that's one of the main things that stands out. And they're coming in with a lot of experience, and they're not going to be afraid. I don't know how much DKR is going to phase them. I will say I was looking at the offense, the home and road splits with a lot of these stats for Kansas State, and a lot of this is just the schedule, who they've played on the road and who they've played at home. The defense, they have the number 3 defense when they're at home, but they have the number 62 defense, and this is by points per game when they're on the road. A lot of that can be schedule, especially when you're looking at points per game. But I will say the defense hasn't been as good on the road, but I don't if they have a lot of veteran players, which they do, that might not be as big of a shock to those guys, especially the guys that have been there for a really long time.
Yeah, and he mentioned Oklahoma State. I watched a good bit of that game. It was like a Friday night game.
Yep.
And Oklahoma State got a lot of points off turnovers. It was a weird game where K-State was turning the ball over. I think they had 2 pick sixes, if I'm remembering some, or set up really short fields that way. It was that was another one of those games. Oklahoma State won, but you still came away realizing K-State was still the better team. It happens. So,
I mean, look, at the end of the day, Kansas State, like if you go and you look at since October, they're number 7 in the country in scoring defense, 13.3 points per game. So this is like at the end of the day, whether it's playing bad on the road or not, just as a whole, this is a team that is playing very well as of late. And that's just like you said, this is a veteran group. This is something that you got to watch out for. I mean, this is like veteran groups are the groups that tend to not get faced by.
Well, they play that 3-3-5 defense, and their linebackers play,
another 3-3-5 defense.
What?
I can't wait for Sark to say, "Oh, they haven't thrown this out all year long."
Well, yeah, no, there's no excuses because the 3-3-5 defense is on film. I will say Wyatt was talking about their linebackers. Their linebackers play very aggressive. They play them up. They play them further up than most teams do with their linebackers. So, we always say you got to run the ball against a 3-3-5 defense, and I mean Texas obviously has to run the ball this week, but it could be tough, man. I mean, I'm curious what you guys think of what the offense is going to do this week against this Kansas State defense.
You know what's interesting, though, is most 3-3-5 defenses are designed to try and sucker you into running the ball.
It doesn't feel like
they try to make it look like it's it's a weak front against the run, and they get you running, and then they bring the secondary and the linebackers up to stop the run. That's the whole scheme of you get this blanket coverage out deep, and then come forward to stop the run. What's killed Texas is most of these 3-3-5 teams have been dropping into coverage. Houston dropping 8 into coverage. It will be interesting to see how K-State plays it. If they are aggressive and bringing forward, that actually may help Texas.
You have to be able to play action and then hit over the middle because there's going to be a gap between the linebackers and the safeties, especially if you're able to utilize play action and bring those linebackers up because the linebackers, I'm telling you, they want to play downhill, so they'll be aggressive. If they can utilize the play action, that'll be huge. But it does worry me a little bit because they've got veteran players and they've got a complex scheme that you can do a lot of different stuff with. So I feel like it's a lot for Malik Murphy to handle in a huge game for him. So
that was my answer to your question but I think that if there's one throw that shows what you're just talking about, Malik Murphy is going to be willing to make those throws. If you remember the Jatavian Sanders catch where he just afterwards he's like shaking his hand like, is there a stickum on my glove or something like that? That was one of the best celebrations, I think, because he thought his hand was injured, and you're like, oh wait, no, he's showing off his stuff.
He deserved that celebration.
Malik Murphy, he's shown the ability to target those intermediate level throws, and he has that ability to have touch and take something off the ball. And then place it accurately because honestly, the touch aspect is one of the most underrated deals because I can't tell you how many times I've seen a quarterback that it's just amazing arm talent. But when they go and if you know what I'm talking about, where the guy throws the ball and then the ball never turns over and it's just sitting there and it wobbles down like a duck. That can happen a lot when you start take them off the ball. And Malik Murphy, he's shown like some almost Quinn level touch on his throws. He throws a really nice spiral. This is going to be a game where I think that they're going to try and come down, like you said. Those linebackers are going to get very aggressive, trying to stop. I mean, I think they are very well aware that they're playing one of the best running backs in college. I unfortunately can't say best running back in college football anymore right now because Ollie Gordon is just absolutely like that dude is playing on an insane level. Like it's over the last 5 weeks, like almost 1,000 yards, insane. But Jonathan Brooks, one of the best running backs in college football, and I think they understand that there's a tough assignment in front of them today. Or not
Listen,
today,
guys, if you liked that interview with Wyatt Thompson, voice of the Cats, if you've liked the analysis of what we've been talking about with the Longhorns or the college, then do us a favor and like the video. We appreciate it. It helps us out greatly. It also, I mean, come on, let's face it. It doesn't take a lot on your end, right? It's like half a second, point and click. So come on, throw us a ball.
Also, we just need the likes. I mean, we go through every day. I have to, take notes on all the shows, all the analytics, the views, and the likes. And we have awesome viewers on the show. I mean, the guys that get up at 6:30 to 7:30 for the morning show,
Absolutely.
viewers are awesome, but we've got to catch up to the other shows on the likes. I mean,
and
we've got to
also
speed most days. If you guys can really help us out, like just give me the 85, 90 likes, that would make our day.
one thing that really helps out too is after the show refreshing and dropping it. Like I understand that we don't got a free jersey today. Those are on Thursdays.
Yeah, just any
But
thoughts?
drop it if you anytime you can ever drop a comment, that helps out a ton. And we really do appreciate all the support.
Absolutely. And I agree. We do have the best viewers on the channel because we have the most dedicated viewers.
It's
Look,
a hard time slot to nail.
It's easy to tune in at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and
At
watch
your lunch break, you're on your
That's
lunch
easy,
break.
right?
You're in the car already, right? Like
right.
I got to find something to kill some time, right?
But you gotta want to listen to Texas Football Talk to
they're
get
fans.
up at 6:30
They're
in the
fans of
morning
this now.
and tune in. You gotta want to know what's going on with K-State to tune in at 7 in the morning and listen to Wyatt Thompson talk about the Wildcats and what they're bringing to town. And by the way, you're better now and more knowledgeable about this game as a result of that. Yep. So you got scoreboard on the friends, and that's because of the show. So drop us the like. Seriously, it's not that hard. Do us the solid, hit that like button, but do subscribe to the channel because we know you are so dedicated. We know you're not going to want to miss what's coming up with Anwar's Old Fashioned Sports Show. You're not going to want to miss what's coming up with Jeff Ketchum and Chad Hastings. It may be easy to tune in at that time, but that's all the more reason for you to tune in at that time. So be sure to check that out. We've got Football with Friends this afternoon. Alex Dunlap should be wrapping up the offensive deep dig grades pretty soon. Those will come out either tonight or tomorrow, sometime soon. And finally, we've got OB Outsiders tonight. I don't know what guests they've got coming tonight, but I promise you it's going to be a good one because they always have good guests.
I love how unsure you are every time you say it.
But they do.
Yeah, tonight we do. You're like you're almost looking over to Aaron for him to stop you mid sentence.
Yeah, no. They are always good. I do agree with that.
You got BJ Johnson. There's been
some big time baseball guys. Yeah, they've been on.
Yeah,
baseball, football. I mean, like you name it.
They had Brooks Kieschnick on for Christ. I mean, come on, like they always have good guests. I mean, I guess it helps if you were a UT quarterback in your past life, but unlike us,
a little bit.
But hey, Scott, we appreciate that. We appreciate all of you guys tuning into it. And it's not lip service. We genuinely appreciate you guys tuning in and enjoying the show. So listen, for Nash, who also appreciates you, but loves talking them Texas Horns. For Orange Blood's own Aaron Little, I am Travis Gailey. Have a great Thursday. Tune in tomorrow, by the way. We're laying out our predictions for this, how the Texas game will play out. So you can expect to hear a lot of what we think will happen in the game. And then, of course, we've got Aggie Fact Thursday. So it's always a great day to tune in. Tune in tomorrow. But for now, have a great day.